Everyone, welcome to the fifth episode of the podcast. Today we have another super special guest on. We have Mark, who's a Detroit native, works in hospitality, an avid index and real estate investor who goes on his social media pages by the Wealth Whale. Welcome to the show, Mark. How are you?
Good, man. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
For sure. Definitely. You put out some good daily content, that beautiful Instagram, gray and baby blue grid we all love to see. So if you just want to give a little background and context on how this all gets started before we get going.
Yeah. Well, my family is a group of immigrants. I was actually born outside of the United States, and we moved to the States in '97. So my parents kind of struggled the first couple of decades of being here, but I think like that financial struggle is something that really influenced me early on. And so from a little kid, I've just been really financially, minded. And then, when I was 17, 18, I got into index fund investing, opened up my Roth IRA as soon as I could, just by the advice of a chef that I actually worked with, who just kind of told me like, yo, you got to get your financial shit together. And you're young, you got to start now. And, I took heed to that advice, and it's been really rewarding. But yeah, I, throughout my journey, I always kind of felt like good quality, like easy to understand, simple investing information was sometimes really kind of hard to come by. And, I always wanted to, add my voice into the narrative and just offer just really clear cut, simple investing advice that, like a 12-year-old can understand and use that information to just get started in investing as early as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what kind of launched the Wealth Whale. And
yes, yeah, because what you're describing is exactly the type of content you put out. Like this examples of different things. Different little tips here and there. So that's really interesting. A chef actually got you into all this stuff. Did he where did you go after that? Because clearly, if you opened the Roth at 18, you not only knew what to do, but you were confident that it would work. You know what I mean? Like it took me a few years. Like I would max the Roth, but I didn't really believe in like, all right, I'll go put some money in the brokerage or whatever. So what did that look like learning along the way or, after you initially got started with the chef giving that advice?
Well, actually, I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, like you can lead a horse to water kind of thing. So he introduced the idea of, compounding, investing, having a Roth IRA. And like I started to understand those concepts, but it took me a couple of years to just, really prioritize investing over, poor spending habits and, things like that. But most of the information it was just kind of a long drawn out process of just surrounding myself in the finance world, being a part of, money pages on Instagram, Reddit, and just, like I said, just being financially minded and surrounding myself with that kind of information. And then over time, you build up this, arsenal of knowledge. And then, now over the last maybe year and a half, I actually kind of feel like I know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Versus before, it just took me a few years to really figure things out.
Yeah, was it books you were reading? I definitely the Reddit stuff I'm sure helped because that's where you can find, you can ask a question and someone will answer it. Obviously, it's up to them whether that would be the right answer, but that's definitely an interesting story of how you got started. So you want to let us know what you're up to these days? You were just telling me prior to us going live about the rental, which I had no idea you had. So if you want to get into that a little bit and we can chat about that, let's hear it.
Yeah. So actually, you mentioned there was a book that was kind of a clicking point for me, and I think that anybody that reads this book for the first time has this similar like epiphany. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Oh yeah. 2 years in November is when I read that.
Yeah, and it gets a lot of attention for really good reason. I mean, it comes highly recommended. But it just talks about buying assets over liabilities, and kind of how the wealthy think versus how the middle class and poor people think. And that was like that clicking moment. And when I read that, I think it was early 2018 when I read it, and I had been shopping for a home to purchase for myself. I was living
Yeah.
with my parents at home, and I was dead set on finding a totally renovated house. No maintenance. I wanted it super turnkey, and I was willing to pay top dollar for it. But after reading that book, I kind of shifted my mindset, and things started to click, and I started looking for a property with more value, and thought, maybe it might be a good idea to just live at home with my parents for a little bit longer, and I buy this rental, and then I have this additional income, and then I could use that income and my working income to buy the house that I want for myself, which
Mm-hmm.
is really kind of how that went. So as soon as I started, looking for things, and this was a really hot real estate market then. I mean, it still is now, but
Yeah. Is this in Detroit we're talking about?
yeah, right outside of Detroit,
Mm-hmm.
in the suburbs of Detroit. So I started looking for a property with a little more value, a little bit more of a fixer-upper. But of course, you want to find a house or property with good structure, good fundamentals. Finally I landed on one and bought it. And I kind of did a hybrid of what my plan was. So I ended up moving into the house
Mm-hmm.
and just living in it for about 7 months while I fixed it up.
Yeah.
So that entire 7 months, the routine, I barely had any furniture or anything. I woke up, did some work on the house, little projects, would go to work, come home, paint, go to sleep, wake up, do that all over again for like 7 months straight. And then, I got it, I redid a lot of stuff and saved a lot of money by just working on it myself.
Mm-hmm.
Painting walls is super easy. There was a few things I needed to contract out for, like electrical work. I don't feel super comfortable doing
Yeah.
myself. But that brought up the value of the home significantly, all the work that I did. And then it was December of last year where I was about ready to, look for a home for myself to buy. But then I thought, maybe I start looking for a property that I can just do this again.
Yeah.
Live in it, fix it up, add value, and then keep doing that until I kind of don't want to. But I ended up finding some really good value in a nice home. So I bought that, and then I moved out, and then rented out the first property in February of 2019, right before COVID shut
Yeah,
everything down.
yeah. So February 2020. That's interesting. So you're just 25, and you already have that first property, and then you're now into. So that's a single family home. That first one you got.
Yeah, that's right. It's a single family home.
Yeah, and then this one you're in now that you own personally as well as single family.
Yep,
Mhm.
that's right. This one has much less work to do. It's in really great shape. I'm going to paint the walls, update some things here and there. But, and then just like every other investor, I'm kind of treading lightly with the current environment. And, we'll see what happens in the next few months. I really like this home. So this might be somewhere I stay long term. And I might just look for, the next deal
Yeah.
for the second rental property.
So that first home, was that an FHA loan, or did you traditional like 20% down, or what did that look like?
No, yeah, traditional. I actually only did it with 5% down,
Hmm.
which helped me free up some capital to put money into it. And because I was shopping at a lower price point than where I initially wanted to buy, the mortgage still was really affordable, and I was making good active income. So it's just using that and funneling that towards you fixing up the property and making it look really nice, and you know doing things that I knew would command a higher rent, uh, you know, that I could get for it.
Yeah, and so does the property cash flow, or are you mainly just matching the rent and the mortgage and then hunting for appreciation?
Yeah, I would say cash flow is pretty good. It's a just under about $400 in cash flow, um, which for a first deal I think is pretty damn good.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not as good as like Brandon Turner from Bigger Pockets.
Yeah.
He, he's really open with, his numbers and things like that. Like some of his properties cash flow like 4 figures. Like he cash flows thousands of dollars on just one property.
Yeah.
He's a pro. But something that like always stuck in my mind while I was getting this first property purchase was like, okay, the first property, like the first deal is not going to be perfect. And I was super anxiety ridden through the whole thing because this was my first foray, with real estate. Whereas with index funds, you can pump money into them all day long
And feel like you're doing nothing. It's the same
Yeah,
to deposit
exactly.
100 grand as it is to deposit $100.
Exactly. Like you just think long term, but like this was super active. Between the real estate or the real estate agent and the getting it rented out and like a couple of contractors that I had. Like it was nerve wracking. Just the constant question in my mind was, am I going to be able to rent this out? Like, and people were telling me like, oh, you can't try to rent out a house in the middle of the winter. And winters can be pretty bad here in
Yeah,
Detroit.
for sure.
But I just figured like, okay, worst case scenario, I cover the mortgage and I'm just building the equity with it, right? Anything over that, is just cherry on top. But the deal shook out pretty well, and it's cash flowing really nicely.
Yeah, that's awesome. For sure. And so let's talk your other side of your investment portfolio. So you're a part of our, little corner of fire and stuff like that on Instagram where we talk a lot of just, buy and hold index fund
Yeah.
investing. So how did you get into that? What does that look like for you currently? Because I know you mentioned you feel a little unstable with the current state of the market, but us being long-term investors, like what does that mean to you? And, how did you get into all that kind of stuff?
For sure. Well, I go back to that conversation I had with the chef,
Yeah.
who
Yep.
just told me about the IRA. And like, even then, like you hear about the IRA, but you don't figure out how index funds really work. So I just hit to Google, try to figure out as much as possible. And then, landed on the S&P 500 as just, a solid vehicle for investment for long-term growth. And I wasn't maxing out at the time, but of course I am maxing out now, and I plan on maxing out every year going forward. But so the majority of my money was going into the S&P 500, and then I opened up a brokerage account pretty early on as well, and for like a brief sliver of time, like when I was 18, 19, like I thought I would know what I was doing. And so I put in a little money into Apple as well, which is the one stock I own. And like, this goes to show, like, I have a couple of people that have asked me about stock recommendations. Like, I will never give a stock recommendation, even though I own Apple. The prospects of Apple being profitable and appreciating over the long term is likely. But companies don't always stay on top. You can look at companies like GE or like Enron.
I couldn't even tell you what Enron is.
Oh, you know what Enron is?
No.
So in the early 2000s, in the late 90s, early 2000s, Enron was like top 5 market cap company, I think, for a long time.
Wow.
Energy company. I can't believe you haven't heard of this. So they started dealing with like a really shady accounting practice where they would project future earnings and record them as current earnings, something along those lines. And then as soon as that came out, the stock plummeted from like $150 stock to nothing, basically. So it just goes to the moral of the story, like why I don't really I probably won't ever be buying any more Apple. Like I'll just let that sit. I don't plan on selling either, but all future investments for me are just going to continue to go into, more diverse, broad market investment like the S&P 500. And then I want to, I'm researching global funds too, because I'm realizing now the importance of having a globally diverse portfolio. So I'm looking at an international stock index as well, where I plan on allocating a small portion of my portfolio to.
Yeah, I think the Vanguard International Fund. A lot of people bring up, like, when we see someone go into like, I think it's VTIX or something like that, or
Yeah,
VXIX, something like that.
yeah,
They mentioned that while it's static over the last decade, it's like really static. That the U.S. lost a decade of growth too. You know what I mean? Between 2000 and 2010. So it's definitely important to take into account that there can be a very big, growth internationally over the next few decades as well, and that it's important to
yeah,
be diversified. And I definitely think you bring up a lot of good points on, the importance of indexing versus just, picking individual stocks. And while I agree that Apple, if you were to be in one individual stock, that might be my number one choice. There's definitely a really good quote that comes to mind that I don't know where I saw it. I think it was probably on Twitter. It was like individual stocks are like gambling, and index funds, you can just buy the whole casino, which I think really encompasses what you just mentioned.
yeah, yeah. Just to piggyback on that thought, another really good quote comes to mind from Jack Bogle, who's the founder of
And
Vanguard,
yeah,
and who actually is credited with inventing the index fund.
yep.
He said, "Don't look for the needle in the haystack, just buy the haystack."
There we go. Yeah, that's another great one that probably connects to some people better for sure. So, you're working the 9 to 5, you're growing the index portfolio and then the real estate portfolio as well, which, I didn't see you mention on social media at all that now own and are attacking those 2 mortgages. So what else do you have going on? Do you have any, side hustles or anything else, or is it just the, awesome stuff you got going right now that I know?
Well, not so much side hustles. I, want to continue to grow the Wealth Whale account,
Yeah.
and certainly, move to monetize that account with some sort of course or book that I've been working on.
Yeah.
And again, like the shtick behind the course or the book is going to be just really simple, approachable, easy to understand investing. Cuts out the BS, cuts out the noise.
Yeah.
It helps people get into the investing world with an easy to understand approach, because the media, and like I watch CNBC all the time, but I'm a critic of it because
Jim Cramer.
yeah, Kramer, man, sometimes they just make it seem so much harder to uh, understand, and nobody sells ads. No channel sells ads talking about boring index funds.
Yeah.
They sell it talking about the next hot stock. And so index funds don't get a lot of media attention because
When
it doesn't sell ads.
statistically, at least for the average person, it's by far the best way to go.
Absolutely. And it's you're collecting dividends from the companies that you own, and you can feel safe and secure in the American or the global economy that it's going to continue to grow, because we're going to continue to be more productive as people. We're going to continue to innovate. We're going to continue to produce new technologies, and there's going to be profit making behind all of that. That's never
And
going to go away.
as long as you're invested not in individual companies, but you own a piece of the whole market, you'll benefit from that.
Absolutely, yeah. And I see that statistics all the time, and I don't remember the exact one, but the vast majority of Americans don't participate in the stock market.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think it's something like I think it's like as high as like 90% or something don't own any, or so. That could be completely wrong. I don't know.
I don't know. I think it was closer to 50, like a little
Oh
over.
no, yeah, you're right. I think it's like somewhere in the 50% range don't own any, but then the
Yeah.
top 90% or the top 10% own 90%, something like that.
Yes. Yeah. I think you're on point there. But yeah, I mean, and I grew up believing it too. I think it's just rooted in the idea that, the stock market is rigged, or you need a lot of money to invest in the stock market, or, any one of those other false narratives that people believe, that keep them from, starting early and building a meaningful amount of wealth over the
Yeah,
long.
I mean, we just look at the numbers on like a 7 or 8% return. I think it's like not even if, but if you do like 2,500 a month, you'll hit $1 million in 17 years. Something
Absolutely.
like that. Yeah, which
Absolutely.
is
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say it's feasible for everyone, but just off like the stuff I post about, like the stuff, I teach and everything and whatever, all these different ways to make extra money, you can do, 2,500 in a month. It's very feasible if, with a level of
Absolutely.
commitment.
Absolutely.
And then, I mean, if you do even more than that, then dividend reinvest and all that, we're looking at, seriously, and like life changing amounts that you can accumulate over time. It's just as important. It's just
Yeah.
super important that, starting now and then you gain those extra years of compound. Like you starting at 18, like when you look back on that in however many years, like even that another really good example I saw on Instagram yesterday. It's like if you do between 19 and 27, or you do 27 to 65, the same amount of money monthly, the person who did 19 to 27 has
Yes.
more at the end.
Yeah. So you can, if you start early enough, you can invest for like 10 years and then stop investing
Yeah.
completely and still end up with more money than somebody that started, 10 years after you did, and had to invest more. It's all about extending that runway. And I like what you talked about. Like when I think back, yeah, I'm thankful that I got started, but at 18. But then I think back, I thought, like, man, all the stupid stuff I spent my money on.
I mean, hindsight's 2020. You
Yeah,
got
of
to
course, of
celebrate
course.
the wins.
But now I shift that mindset to think that when I look back, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, I want to make sure that there's no way that I can think, man, I wish I would have invested.
Yeah.
I want to be able to get it all, into the real estate, into cash flowing real estate, and into the stock market.
Yeah, for sure. Just speaking on numbers wise, another great example, and we're just going over all these, really awesome, realistic examples that are going to make great little Instagram TV clips. But I like the idea of some people, like you get to a certain point when your Roth or your 401k is just going to be ridiculously high, like 25 years after you let it. So that's when they prioritize the brokerage, which I think is definitely an interesting conversation to have about people too much prioritizing their tax advantage accounts, which if they were to go into an early retirement scenario, they would need that, either eat the penalty or the brokerage.
Right.
Funds to be higher, which is another awesome situation to be in, that based on future predictions and past returns, just averaged out, that you'll be in a great position, at 60, 65, whatever, and now you're able to prioritize financial benefits in the short term by investing in the brokerage. But that's, I just think another cool conversation to have.
Yeah, I agree. I'm definitely investing as much as I can in the brokerage. I still believe, and this is up to debate, but I still believe maxing out your either your tax advantage Roth IRA before flowing money into the brokerage is the way to go.
Yeah, I agree. I agree as well.
Yeah, but I think if you do it right and you spend within your means, maintain a budget, and prioritize, investing, you can still build a meaningful amount of money in that brokerage, and then potentially do something like, well, you can build like a dividend income portfolio in your brokerage, which can hold you down with, your real estate income or any other means of passive income.
Yeah, that's the nice thing, is you're nicely diversified in there too. Once those mortgages are, close to being paid off, and eventually you get paid off, as long as you're covering, repairs and vacancies, everything, you're going to be in a very good situation with those, and it'll be predictable.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's talk the Wealth Whale a little bit. Very catchy name. So how did you come up with it? How did you, what inspired you to get on social media? And how did you find our little, corners of Instagram and Twitter specifically?
Were you just asking about how I came up with the name of the Wealth Whale?
That first. Yeah, let's hear that.
Okay. It's actually a really deep story. It has a lot of meaning behind it. No, I'm just joking.
I mean, you don't have to share it all. That's
no. It doesn't have deep meaning whatsoever. I just
okay.
Yeah, I just went with it. I like the alliteration, wealth.
I do too. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I thought it would be memorable and that it would be easy for people to find. And then I was on Canva, and I saw this little whale icon. Yeah. And I liked it. I thought it was kind of cool. And then I rolled with it, and that's really how it came up with the name.
Yeah, and it matches nicely,
Uh,
speaking on Canva, that nice little aesthetic you have on your page, the tan
oh,
and
thank
blue. I
you,
think I said it was gray and blue earlier.
thank you.
I'm looking at it now, and it's that nice, white for the tweet if it's tweet content, with the
Yeah.
background being the tan, and the blue with that nice Wealth Well logo. So how did you, like, was there any big account you found at first, or did you just blow onto the
Yeah.
scene? What did that look like?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, like I got to give props to you because I honestly, before Wealthway, I mean, I had a personal Instagram account where I would
But
just,
yeah, that's the thing. If you want to
well,
grow, it's got to be looking for strangers, which is clearly what your page is doing now. I bring
yeah,
up that a lot of point is that there's got to be a mindset shift between posting for people and posting for strangers, because
absolutely.
strangers pay the bills in terms
That's
of
what,
monetizing your page.
absolutely. And I'm still learning that lesson now. But I remember you called. I hated social media. Like I would be a passive browser. I was never on
Yeah.
Twitter up
Yep.
until 6 months ago. Um, but then you called it. I saw you call it digital real estate, and
Yeah.
that kind of clicked for me. Um, but prior to seeing that, I was again just browsing Instagram, and I came by Chris Johnson.
There we go. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
He is an amazingly big brand that draws a lot of
yeah,
people in.
absolutely. And he has the blueprint for how to do that and how to build the audience. And I was doing quarantine, and besides real estate, like for a long time, I thought, that's going to be my quote unquote side hustle, is just buying up these rental properties until they just cover my expenses, and just fill everything into or flow everything else into the stock market. So for a while, I was looking for that, side hustle that wasn't those two things. And then, uh, I kind of tried a couple of things. It didn't really work out. And then I landed on this thing, and I thought, hey, well, I like to talk about money. I like to talk
Yeah.
about finances, investing. And it was the beginning of quarantine, and I took his course, and he just
Yeah.
made it
I've taken
seem
it as
really,
well.
yeah, he makes it seem really accessible, and he gives you the one, two, threes of it all, and you just and I went from there. And then another one of your interviewees, Sean Cranston.
There we go. Yep.
Like,
Yep. I think he credits it the same way. But yeah, he is an awesome brand as well. He's really taken off. Tons of good advice.
I'm a big fan of his, man. He's like a no BS kind of guy. Well, a lot of the people on here are no BS, but I won't name any. But some accounts, like, I don't know how they they recommend specific things that are not proven, and like tell.
Yeah, there can be an agenda behind
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely, absolutely. But I think Sean does a really good job, and I think he's one of the accounts that does it really right. So I've been following him for a long time, and his journey is awesome, and he's doing really well with Index Fund Investing 101, his
Yep.
book,
Yep.
which was you know uh, an awesome book. I bought it, I read it, and I would consider myself a seasoned index fund investor, and I learned a great deal of things just from
Yeah,
watching,
and
from
that's the
reading the
nice
book.
thing is breaking down all the different brokerages you can use and everything. Because at the core,
Yeah,
it's very simple. Find a brokerage, find different funds that work for you and what you're looking for, and just roll with it. Which is
yeah,
why is a major overcomplication and why people don't get into it. Like I talk to just friends in real life, and they like don't know, and I'm like literally just Vanguard, like type in some
yeah,
numbers. If the expense ratio is this low, like it
yes,
might be a good idea. Like.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So between those two bigger accounts, of course, I've learned a lot from you on the social media game.
Oh,
Um,
I just love it. Like the opportunity to all right, people are on their phones all day, right? They might as well be
absolutely,
looking at productive stuff. I at least think I know stuff that's productive.
yeah,
And there's the opportunity, one, to meet a shitload of people. Like we would have never met without this. We live in very different parts of the
100%.
country, etc. And potentially in the long game, monetizing the audience in the form of products that help them, products that I've
Got
used
to offer
and
value.
such. Yeah. Yep. So I mean, it's a no-brainer to me to, posting public different thoughts, what's going
Yeah,
on, different recommendations, and putting stuff out there in ways that it's native to you, because then it might relate to someone in a way they haven't seen before, which makes them then take, positive action in their life, which is, I mean, ridiculously valuable. We can't quantify results of that, but once again, we know it's working. Like, there's accounts literally every day just scrolling on the timeline. I just pick up awesome bits of motivation and stuff. And it
yeah,
really just,
yeah.
social media, as long as you're creating and consuming the right things, it really, breeds good conversations and just healthy, life changes and everything.
Absolutely. I mean, we're all just a product of our environment. If your, if your Instagram feed is full of, models and like BS crap and
Yeah.
all that, that's how your life's going to turn
Yeah.
out. If you surround it with, or if you surround yourself with people that, force you to be the best that you can be, um, and you surround your environment and your visuals with, good positivity, that'll breed positivity.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a lot of good points. Before we wrap up, just one thing, if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, or maybe someone who's just getting started investing everything, maybe they recently found your page, what would that look like?
That's a great question. Um, I would just try to remind myself that uh, action is better than inaction, and just
Very good
go with
piece
it.
of arbitrary advice, but that is
Yeah,
100% applicable and is
yeah,
100% correct.
absolutely. Whether that's investing or getting into real estate, just do one step at a time. You're never going to be able to connect the dots looking backwards. Steve Jobs said that. You just got to have faith that you're going to figure it out down the
Yep.
line.
And
Just
as the numbers
taking
work
step
and
after step.
everything. See,
Yeah,
now, just off this conversation, like, there's nothing on your page about the real estate or anything when,
yeah.
new property is no big deal at 25. You know what I mean? Like, I would love
Well,
to
I
see you
appreciate
talk
that.
about
Yeah,
that on there.
yeah. I will definitely plan on. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about, uh, and I self-manage, so I learn a lot
Yes.
about.
Yeah. Once again, like, very valuable lessons and
Yeah.
everything.
So I definitely plan on releasing some content about some of the things that I've learned from, just being a landlord, being a good landlord, um, you know, getting rental properties, the finance behind it, learning about depreciation, the tax benefits, all that good
Yeah,
stuff.
that's like the nitty-gritty parts of it. That's what I don't understand yet. But, like, once again, social media is connected, each of us, and now I can go to you and ask questions about
Yeah, absolutely.
whatever, and there's all types of content to look into.
Yeah.
So where can people that are listening or watching on YouTube find you on Instagram and Twitter?
Yeah. So I'm at the Wealth Whale.
Yep. No
On
Insta, no
Twitter.
underscores or anything. And
Nope.
your his information will be linked below if you want to follow up with Mark. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, definitely appreciate you coming on and appreciate
My
all the
pleasure, really.
listeners. If you want to check out Mark, his information will be linked below. If you're listening on a podcast platform, I would love a good review. And if you're listening on YouTube, I would love a subscription and a like. Drop any questions below or DM either of us if you want to know any additional information. And I will see you on